Starting. Welcome back, everyone, as we are continuing in the Tzurba, volume 16 in Hilchot Shabbat. And we're going to be starting in Shir Gimel. Shir Gimel, Hilchot Hadlakat, Nerot, Shabbat Bet, page 111. Now, before we start, I just wanted to make one note of correction, clarification. We ended off last week with the question, I'm in the hotel room, I don't have candles, I only have light bulbs. Can I use the light bulb to make a bracha? And then the additional question was, well, if the only light bulb I have is the bathroom light bulb. So there's a couple of things you got to take into place. First thing first, we already saw that the Poskim say incandescent light bulbs, right? The light bulbs with a filament, not fluorescent, not LED. Technically, you can make a bracha on them if you have no other choice. If it's LED or fluorescent, one should not make a bracha on them. We also saw it's better if it's battery, but Chamabaji said it's also okay if it's actual electricity. So, if in the hotel room, I don't have candles, and I have an electric bulb that's an incandescent light bulb, which is today it's very rare to see. Most light bulbs in the hotels, and most light bulbs even here. Take a look at all these lights that are here. None of them are incandescent. Everything here is LED. So these would not be, would not be able to make a bracha on them. Incandescent, the old bulbs that have the thing inside. Yeah, that's the one you can make a bracha on. So if technically there was a light bulb in the hotel room that had that, you can make a bracha on that. Now, what about if the light bulb is in the bathroom? So first of all, is it LED? Okay, if it's LED, definitely you can't use it. What happens if it's an incandescent light bulb in the bathroom? Can you make a bracha on that? So although there is a usage to that light, so you can see what you're doing in the bathroom, the halacha is that you cannot make a bracha on that light bulb. The reason being is because that bathroom is not a place of kavod. And since it's not a place of kavod, shalom, Ruven, since it's not a place of kavod, person cannot make a bracha on that light. So that's a clarification from last week. Let's now continue in this week's Shir Gimel, page 111. So the question here in the Tzurba is, who is the person to light the Shabbat candle? There's a lot of people at home. Who is the one who's supposed to light it? So obviously we all say the woman. But why is it that? So the Mishnah tells us, and we read this every Friday night in the shul, in the Perek of Amem Adlikin, we say, Shlosha devarim tzarich adam lomar betoch beto erev Shabbat im hashicha. Isartem, araftem, hadliku et haner. Light the candle in honor of Shabbat. So the Baal Habayit says this in his house. Make sure to light the candles. So the Midrash Rabbah, in source number 2, Sheilu et Rabbi Yehoshua. Why was the woman given the mitzvah of lighting the candles? So said the Midrash Rabbah, so Yeshua tells them, because she extinguished the neshama of Adam Rishon by giving him to sin, giving him the Eitz Hadat. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. Right? Adam was the Ner Hashem, the candle of Hashem, and she took away from that fire when she made him to sin. So as a tikkun, the fikach nitan law mitzvah ner Shabbat. Therefore, as a tikkun, they gave her to light the Shabbat candles. The Rambam, in source number 3, has a more practical approach. You know why the noshim amutzevet al davar zeh yotim min ha'anoshim lefi shehen mitzvot b'beitam v'hen ha'isket v'melachas habayis. Because the women are the ones found more commonly in the house and are responsible for household chores. So as such, lighting candles, making sure there's light in the house on Shabbat is a household chore, which is the woman's part where she is involved in. That's why it falls on the woman to have to be responsible for lighting the candles. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Hanashim muzharot bo yoter. The women are warned about lighting the candles. Why? It says like the Rambam, Mipnei because they're inside the house, they're found in the house, and they're busy with the household chores. Interesting. The Bach writes, what happens if the man in the house decides 1 week he wants to light the candles? Can he take it away from his wife to light the candles? So let's look at the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah writes, even if the man of the house decides he wants to light the candles, the woman takes priority. Meaning the husband cannot decide 1 week that he wants to light the candles. It is the woman's obligation. And she has the privilege to write it. He can't take it away from her.
We have in mind when we make kiddush, no? When we make kiddush, we have in mind the candles also, no?
We look at the candles and part of it, yeah, but it's not the lighting of the candles. Okay, so that's a different story. That's a different story. Says the Mishnah Berurah, if she lights many candles, then she can give him to light 1 or 2 if he wants to light, basically. Okay, if he wants to light and she's lighting a lot of candles, she lights it and then she gives him to light a few other ones. But in the end of the day, we see from the Midrash Rabbah, there's a tikkun involved. The Rambam says that the lady's chores, it's her job, that's what she does in the house. She brings in the light, she's the akeret habayit, right? We say that the zan, the wife, is the source of the house. All right, I think the Bukharian expression is how you say it? There's an expression that the one who takes care of the house is the woman, right? Zan. That's the expression. All right, you got it there. So she's the one who brings the light. She's the one who takes care of the house. She gets the privilege of lighting those candles. Okay.
Is it important who prepares the light?
It's brought down that the husband should prepare the light. Better if the husband prepares the light. We are on page 113. Okay. So 2 weeks ago, Orchana, I think is the name of the school, Queen's Gymnasium high school for girls. They had a Shabbaton here in Bayswater. They brought the girls and they asked to arrange some sleeping places for them. So we took in a few girls to sleep by us. And came Friday night, and my wife lit the candles, and the girls say, we got to light as well. Like 3 out of the 4 girls that were sleeping by us, 3 girls said they have to light. 1 girl says she doesn't light.
I thought it was a Bukharian school.
Good question, right, Makio? Okay, so let's look at this section is, do girls light at home? So says the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata on the top of page 113 in source 6, some of the custom for all the girls in the home who have reached the age of chinuch to light Shabbat candles, in addition to the candles lit by the lady of the house. In fact, says the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, some also make a bracha on this lighting. So there's a minhag that the girls should be lighting, and there's a minhag that the girls should be saying the bracha. Said the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, that if they're going to make a bracha, maybe they should light in different rooms. But if you take a look at the footnote 4 on the bottom of that page, 113, the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata says what also they can do, the girl can have kavana not to be yotzeh through her mother's bracha, and then she can make her own bracha in the same room. So we have an Ashkenazic source for girls to be lighting on their own with a bracha. In source number 7, he brings the famous fact, the Admor Lubavitch, the great Lubavitch Rebbe, from Menachem Mendel, Tiken, Shekol Bat Shel Gimel Shonim V'Lamala Madleket, that every girl 3 years and above should light candles. Okay, so there seems to be, by the Ashkenazim at least, a strong source for lighting candles, and possibly even with the bracha. Right. For us, I think that's going to be problematic, making a bracha. Correct. But let's take a look further in the Yachavedat. So this is Chacham Ovadia writing. And he writes, Me'ikr ha'halacha Ein kol chova al habanot. There is no chova on the unmarried girls who are sitting at her father's table, at the parents' table, to light candles. And there was never such a thing by the Sfaradim for single girls who are home to be lighting candles. No such thing. And he writes, and if there are people that they want to light, they think they're doing more and better, he says, absolutely not. They cannot make a bracha. They'll listen to the akeret habayit, the mainstay of the house. They will listen to the lady of the house saying the bracha, and they'll answer amen. And by the way, that's the recommended practice. If you have daughters or daughter-in-laws coming to the house and everyone has to light candles, they should all come to the dining room area where the mother-in-law, the mother is lighting the candles, the mother makes the bracha, everyone answers amen, and everyone goes ahead and lights to that bracha that they answered amen, and they're part of that bracha. So says the Chamavadia that girls who are home should not be lighting, and if they are lighting, absolutely no bracha. Okay. Right. Even if a married woman, she's a guest, she doesn't light in someone else's house for Sfaradim. Just make sure you're on mute if you join, so we don't get distracted. Thank you. Right, they can light in their own room, if that's the case. Okay. So we have the Chavedat, we have the Shulchan, we have the Chacham Ovadia that says they should not light, and if they do light, they should not make a bracha. Okay. Yeah, it's a bracha levatala. The bracha levatala, you're not allowed to do that. You have to always be careful about brachot. We have a general principle. If you're not supposed to make a bracha, you're not sure, better not make that bracha.
So they go in your house. What happened?
So, so the guests who came and they wanted to light candles, we gave them candles. I asked my wife today. I said, "Did they make a bracha when they lit or not?" She said she doesn't remember. It was so hectic that early Shabbat, we had guests. She doesn't remember what they did. She said she gave them the candles and they lit it. The next thing she knew, it was lit. She doesn't know if they made a bracha on it or not. Hopefully they didn't, because and they're all Sephardic girls. They shouldn't make a bracha. Fine, Sephardic. What's the Bukharan custom? There's no Bukharan custom to light candles. That's not already. You're talking about Samarkand that got influenced by Lubavitch. So growing up, I'll tell you, in my parents' house, and we are from Samarkand, none of my sisters lit candles. It was not something that was done. And you talk to the old people, no one lit. The mother lit, and that was it. Oh, that's already another story. That's another story. Says the Panini Halacha on source 9 on page 114. He says, you should know, the truth is, most Ashkenazim, the girls don't light either. Okay? It's not as popular as a minhag as thought. It seems to be Chabad Lubavitch made it more popular. And they're the ones who mostly do this. Most Ashkenazim, the girls, single girls who are home, are not lighting their own Shabbat candles.
They do without a bracha.
Right. If by us, when they're lighting, even by them, they should not be making a bracha. The mother makes it, and that's it. Okay, fine. So we'll take a look at the laws of Shabbat, the book over here, Sefhaya Olamim, on page 83, outside of the Tzurba for 1 minute, and Halacha 46. He writes, a single daughter who is living at home, who wants to light a candle, even though her mother will be lighting the Shabbat candle, she should listen to the bracha that is said by her mother, and then light her candle after her mother. This is even in the case if she wants to light in a different room. She's not permitted to recite a bracha, even if she has intention not to fulfill her obligation through her mother. It doesn't work. A single girl at home for Sfaradim can never make a bracha on a candle and does not even have to light. All right, now
in some cases, the mother She's traditional. She lights the candle. She doesn't keep Shabbat. And the girl is more religious. The daughter is more religious. So which?
It's a good question. So Reuben's question is, you have a traditional house. The mother lights the candles. She says the bracha. She makes the candles, but then she's not keeping Shabbat. And the girl in the house is observant, and she does keep Shabbat. That's a very good question. I don't have the answer offhand. We'll have to look into it and get back. It is a very good question. But let's move on. We're on page 114. We're now dealing with a case of someone who's away from home. Okay, someone is away from home. There's a couple of cases when it comes to away from home. His wife is still home. He's not. She's lighting at home. He went away somewhere. Or he's home and she's not home. She gave birth. She's in the hospital. He's home. He's lighting the candles. Does she still have to light her own candles in the hospital room? He's away. She's lighting candles. Does he have to light where he is? Yeah. So let's see what the halacha is. It's not a smart thing to say yes or smart thing to say no. The idea is let's learn and see the right approach.
Have to be in the house.
Amar Rav Sheshit. Okay, we have a guest by Chanukah. Oh, so today's Chanukah. They have a guest by Chanukah. And he also needs to light. So what should he do? He should give some money to the host. Says, here's a couple of coins. I'm getting in on the oil and the wick and everything that's part of the Chanukiah. And this way, he is part of the candle lighting. And then Rav Zera said, after I got married, now I don't need to do that anymore. Why? Because my wife is home and she's lighting the Chanukiah for me. So we see by Chanukah candles that if your wife is lighting at home, right, vice versa, the husband's lighting at home, then the wife lighting at home potters the husband's lighting. He doesn't have to light the Chanukiah. And if he doesn't have a wife and he's a guest somewhere, then he gives some money to the host, so he's part of the Chanukiah. Says the Raviyah, he says that what? The same thing applies to Shabbat. The same thing applies to Shabbat. That if he's a guest, he should give some money to the host, and he's part of their candle lighting, unless he has people at home lighting for him. Then he doesn't have to participate in the lighting of the host. On source 12, the Mordechai says, what about the Bachurim, the boys? They're leaving their houses to go learn. He says, they have to light the Nerot Shabbat in their rooms, and they have to make a bracha on it. Because what? Why? What's one of the reasons why we light the candles? In order to see where we are in the room. In order we don't hit our toes while we're walking. Well, guess what? If my wife is lighting at home and I'm in a different room and it's dark, how is her lighting at home helping me with the darkness here? Says the Mordechai. I have to light their own candles. Says the Shulchan Aruch. This is a very important source, source 13. Bachurim, they're going to learn outside their house. They have to make candle lighting in their rooms and make a bracha on them. But if his wife is with him, right? His wife is staying with him in the guest house. He doesn't have to light his own room. Because his wife is lighting with him. Meaning, let's say they're a guest at someone's house and the wife has a room and he has a room. They're both guests, but they go to separate rooms. And she's lighting in one room and he's in the other room. He doesn't have to make a bracha in his own room because she's lighting for him. He says if an orech, a guest who doesn't have a room, he doesn't have his own room, and he cannot light himself because the host is going to light, then tzarich hishtatef bepruta. Then he should give some money to the lighting. Okay, one more source, and then we're going to explain the halakha. 14. Source 14, page 115. Says the Mishnah Berurah, when the Mordechai said the Bachurim, the young boys, he doesn't mean young boys. Hainu sheyesh lem noshen. It means even if they're married. El shehochen chutz lebeitam. And they're leaving their house. Even the woman, their wife is lighting the house, they are not fulfilling their obligation for lighting the candles through their wife's lighting. Because they have their own separate room, because within the place that they are a guest, so therefore they have to light on their own. And especially if he's not married, definitely he has to light on his own. So says the Mishnah Berurah that if a husband is away and he has his own room, he should be lighting his own candles. So here, now we're going to break it up to you in the actual halakha. So stick with me for 1 minute. I'm going to explain to you step by step what we have to do. I'm looking now in the Yalkut Yosef English edition on page 165. And he says as follows over here. Source Halacha 13 in 165 in the Yalkut Yosef English edition, volume 1. If the lady of the home is away for Shabbat, her husband must kindle lights in the honor of Shabbat in their home. Okay? Likewise, if the man has gone away from the home for Shabbat and is staying by himself in a hotel room, he must recite the blessing and kindle lights for Shabbat where he's staying, even though his wife is also kindling lights wherever she is staying. Says the Shulchan Aruch, if the husband and wife are in separate places, the wife is lighting and the husband's lighting. Okay. So now, these are the steps. This is the different cases here, Abotai. We're looking in the Laws of Shabbat, page 84, and he says as follows. One who is not home for Shabbat and is staying in a place that he has his own private room must light Shabbat candles where he's staying for Shabbat, even though his wife will be lighting in his home. Okay? So, if you're away from your wife is away from you, and you both have private rooms, both of you have to light separate candles with the bracha. No, not in the same house. You are away from each other. She's in the hospital, you're at home. She's at home, you're in the hotel. You both have to make separate brachot, separate candles. Now,
what if he's at his parents' house and she's in a hospital?
he has his own room?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see the next case. Let's give me a second. I'll go through all 3 cases. Tell me if it applies. If he does not have his own private room and is staying at someone's home who will be lighting candles in addition to his wife lighting at his home, then he has fulfilled his obligation of lighting. So this is another case. This is a case, his wife is home. She's lighting with the bracha. He is at a guest house, right? He does not have his own private room. Because if he had a private room, he lights. He doesn't have a private room. The host is lighting, and his wife is at home lighting. He doesn't have to light with the bracha. Okay? Third case, one who is a guest and has a specific room set aside for him to sleep in can light in the room that he is sleeping in. One who does not have a specific room and also does not have anyone at home to light for him should then give some money to the host to take part of the lighting. Okay, so we have the 4 cases. Again, this is the 4 cases. Someone's not home for Shabbat. He's staying in a private place. His wife is staying in a private place. They should both make separate brachot. Okay? He is staying somewhere where they're lighting, doesn't have his own room. His wife is lighting at home. He doesn't have to make his own bracha. Because his wife is lighting for him there, and he's here, and there's light here. He's good. If he's a guest and he has his own room, he can light. And if he's not his own room, he can't light, doesn't have a wife lighting, then he gives money to the host to be part of the lighting. You got it? Fine. Now comes the next question based on this on page 118. What about those boys or girls who are studying either in yeshiva or in seminary? Right? First of all, they're all single. They don't have a wife. Right? Their mother's lighting doesn't really help for them. That the wife can help, right? If I'm home, if my wife is lighting at home and I'm here and there's a red light, technically I don't have to make a bracha because my wife's lighting at home and there's light here. But these boys or these girls are not married. They don't have someone lighting for them. So what to do? So says Chazon Ovadia in source 19, unmarried young men who are in yeshivot with 2 or 3 young men sharing a room. Even though candles are lit on behalf of the yeshiva in the dining room, there is an obligation on the young men who have their own room to light Shabbat candles with the bracha. They have a room. They have their own private room. They're all together. That's their bedroom, right? One of the young men should recite the bracha and light, having in mind to cover his roommates. And they should have in mind to fulfill their obligation. And they should take turns lighting every Erev Shabbat. So if you have 3 boys, they should make a rotation. 1 week me, 1 week him, 1 week the next guy. And this way, everybody lights with the bracha, and they're yotze through one each other's lighting. I'm going to take a minute outside the Tzurba for a second, in the Yalkut Yosef English edition, page 166, in volume 1 of Shabbat. And he says here as follows: a yeshiva student who boards in a dormitory must recite the blessing and kindle lights in honor of Shabbat in his dormitory room. This is the case whether his parents live in the same country where he's studying or anywhere else in the world, because the parents' lighting doesn't cover his lighting. He must use enough oil in the lamps or large enough candles to remain lit until he returns to his room after the Su'udah. So he would have used the candles. Remember, that's from last week. Can't just light it and go. You have to have used it. So if he's going to light before Shabbat and then go out, pray mincha, go eat the Su'udah, he's going to come back, he has to have made sure it's still light so when he comes back. If several students share a room, they should take turns. If the yeshiva, now, what happens if the yeshiva has a policy, no lighting candles in the dorm room? So it's a normal policy. Candles in the dorm room, you don't know what they have in the room, you don't know what's flammable, things can go crazy. So then what? A student can fulfill their obligation with the lights kindled in the yeshiva dining room. It's a very big chidush. Because we're staying up until now, you have your own private room, you should make candles. But let's say I can't light in the room. It says over here that they will fulfill their obligation with the yeshiva dining room. We said that we started this class by saying that although we were mentioning that last week, the bathroom light is problematic because it's not a place of honor, and therefore you can't make a bracha on that. However, we're going to see that the yeshiva bachrim, the reason why the dining room works for them, the dining room candle table, the candles in the dining room works for them, is because the boys in the yeshiva are going to get a status of, so to speak, family. All the boys in the yeshiva are considered one family. All right, they're all, there's the Rosh Yeshiva, and there's the Rebbitzin, and then all the boys. So they have somewhat of a status of a family. Therefore, the candles in the dining room, if the yeshiva doesn't let them light in their own rooms, they'll be yotze with those. Let's just take a look in the Laws of Shabbat on page 86, where he writes here in Halacha 52, he writes, yeshiva students are obligated to light Shabbat candles, even if they are in yeshiva in the same country with their parents. Each student in each dorm room should light his own candles. All the students may fulfill the obligation with one set of candles. If this is not possible, one may rely on the candles lit in the yeshiva dining room, provided that he'll have some light in his room. So the candle lighting in the dining room works, but you have to also have a little bit of light in your room. You can't make a bracha on it, but you should make some light in your room or some light coming into your room. Fine. Continues over here. Same thing applies to the girls. They must, if they're in seminary, and they all have their own dorm rooms. If several girls share a room, one should light with the bracha, and they answer amen, and every week they should take turns. If they don't let them light in their room, and each girl wants to light her own candle, so what do? They all gather in the dining room. One girl gets up and says the bracha, everyone answers amen, and then everyone can light. Because they're all saying, because the amen to that bracha is as if they said it. When you say amen, right? You say amot tzedach menaretz, everyone answers amen, then you eat the bread. You don't have to make your own bracha anymore, right? Because you said amen. So, on Shabbat table, everyone makes their own kiddush. People shouldn't. They should be respectful to the head of the house. One person makes kiddush, everyone says amen, everyone takes the wine and drinks it. Same thing. Everybody makes one person makes hamotzi, everyone answers amen. You give the bread, everybody eats it. So similar. That's to say the concept works. One person says the bracha la'adlik ner shel Shabbat, and everyone answers amen, and they light, and that's fine. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
When they go to program.
We said last week that's a big problem. It's a big problem for Sfaradim. It's a simple rule for Sfaradim. If someone already lit with the bracha in that room, you can no longer light with the bracha in there. That's it. You can light without a bracha. You cannot light with the bracha.
Everyone put the candle by themselves, right?
Everybody put the
Ashkenazim, they could light even if there's candles already there. That was last week's shir. That's what we talked about. Okay, fine. All right. So now we saw what Yeshiva Bachram do and how it is done. Says, if you want to take a look for a minute in page 120 in that orange box over there, the beige box, take a look at number 3. Right? If they can't light it in the dorm rooms, they don't let. They should rely on the lighting in the dining room, even without giving money, as if they are part of the family of those lighting there, and make sure there is some light in their room. Right? That was the source where we said the boys in the yeshiva are all considered like one family. So the lighting in the dining room was the bracha, and then without the bracha, they put on in their room a little bit something light, and then that would be fine. So again, and then he writes the third option that we just read is the most prevalent custom in most places, especially given the fact that lighting in a dormitory room is a fire hazard, and so we don't want people to be lighting in a room. It's dangerous. Lighting in a bedroom. Most bedrooms, are a little bit tight. If you go as a guest to someone's house, you're going you and your wife and your 3 kids or whatever it is, right? And you're all fitting into 1 or 2 rooms. It's tight. And now you want to make your own bracha on a candle and you put it in your room. And then you come in with the baby and it's late at night and you knock it off, chas shalom. It's a very big sakana, a person to put himself in. Therefore, better not to light in the room. I would suggest, unless you have a protected place and no one's going to go there and it's going to be safe, I would suggest not to light in the room, just for safety reasons. Light it in the dining room. Go when the hostess in the house is going to get up and say the bracha. The lady should go there, listen to the bracha, answer amen, and then everybody lights. Best way. That's the best way for Sfaradim to do it. Okay, here's an interesting question. Here's the question. It's Shkia. Right? Shkia on Friday means you're not allowed to do any more melacha. And I forgot to light candles. So Shkia is sunset. Sunset, it's not yet nightfall. Nightfall is tzet. It's called a period called Bein Hashmashot, twilight. We cannot do melacha. We could tell Goyim to do melacha because it's not yet Shabbat, right? Shabbat is a tzet. So the question is as follows. She forgot to light candles. It is Shkia now. She's no longer allowed to do malacha. She's not allowed to light fire. Can she tell her goita? Can she tell her cleaning lady? Can she tell her maid, who's a goya, light the candles, and then she makes a bracha on those candles? Can she do that?
No.
Don't say no, yes. Say, let's figure it out. You can say no, let's figure it out. It's a good question. Okay? So it says over here, the Magen Avraham. Well, let's read the box first. The box on the top there. Magen Avraham quotes a surprising ruling of Rameir ben Baruch Halevi of Vienna, allowing one who did not light candles before sunset to ask a non-Jew to light on their behalf during Bein Hashmashot. So it says the Magen Avraham that she should instruct a non-Jew to light, and she should recite the bracha. He says this is astonishing. How how can you tell a non-Jew to make a malacha for you? Anything you're not allowed to do, you can't tell a guy to do. And can you make a bracha on someone else doing something? So Rabbi Kiva Eger says, hold on one second. The question with telling the goya to do something is not that problematic. Why? Okay, so says Rabbi Kiva Eger question, how can a goy can be the question is as follows. Rabbi Kiva Eger's question is as follows. He has another question. He says, how could a goya be a shliach? You want to make someone an agent to do something, right? A goy cannot be your shliach to do a mitzvah because the goyim don't do mitzvahs. So how could you get a goy to light your candles and then you want to make a bracha on that? So how do you deal with that? So here in the box, you see in that orange box, he writes over here. However, to defend the Maharam and resolve the question of Akiva Eger, how can you get a shliach to do it? He says that perhaps the way we have to look at this mitzvah is not who's doing the mitzvah, but did the result happen? Meaning, the Shabbat candle, do I have to light them or do I need them to be lit? Do I have to do the mitzvah or does the mitzvah have to be done? Meaning, you understand the difference?
We need the light.
Right. So that's what he wants to say. He says, perhaps you can say it's a result. It's a result-based mitzvah. I need the result to happen. The result's here. Very good. I can make a bracha on it. Maybe. That's what he wants to say. Telling a guy to do something between Shkia and Tzet is permissible because it's Menish Mashot. So you don't have that problem. That's what they want to say. That's what the Maharam, that's what the Maharash said. Magen Avraham is bringing this. So, what's the actual din? What about for us? So we're going to take a moment.
It's also better to say the girl with below 12 years. No?
No. They can't. They're ready. They're ready to shkia. You cannot get them the Jew to do anything. Okay, we're going to take a look in a moment. In the Yalkut Yosef, page 173, outside of the Tzurba, and he says as follows: one may not recite the blessing over the Shabbat lights if someone else is going to light them, whether it is another Jew or it's a guy. The rule is one may not recite a blessing over any mitzvah and then have an agent perform the act of the mitzvah. So this is the Yalkut Yosef. This is Yitzchak Yosef, and he says no such thing. There is no shliach to do the mitzvah of Nerot. Whoever is doing the mitzvah is the one who says the bracha. You don't send him to do it and you say the bracha. Doesn't happen. Okay? So not like the Ricky Vager, and not like the others over here that were trying to say you can do that. He says off the bat you can't do that. Next, in the Yalkut Yosef, page 177, halacha 57. He writes as follows: 51. If it happened, it's in the different book. If it happened that a woman failed to kindle the Shabbat lights, she may instruct a goya, to kindle them for her if it's still Benish Mashot. So Shkia is 4:27. Okay? So at 4:27, you have another, nowadays it's about 10 minutes, okay? Because of the winter's mine, it's shorter. So till around 4:37, if she didn't light, after 4:27, you can't light anymore, right? That's it. Remember, when it says candle lighting time on the schedule, that's 18 minutes before Shkia. Shkia, you can no more do anything. We don't want to wait till the last minute, so we tell you to light earlier. But you technically could light until Shkia, so till 4:26. 4:26 passed. It's now 4:27. Now, at 4:27, you can't do any more malacha. No Jew can do any more work. In those 10 minutes, you can tell a guy to do something for you. Because after those 10 minutes, you're not allowed to tell a guy to do anything for you. But during those 10 minutes, you can tell the guy to do something for you. So you can tell the guy, all right, I forgot to light Shabbos candles, you light them. Okay? However, he writes, she may instruct the non-Jew to kindle as many lights as she always lights. But she may not recite the blessing over this kindling of the lights. Okay, we already saw he held, it's like Yosef Chabad, you hold, that there is no shlichus by this mitzvah. You can't do it. You can't have someone else do it. And then say the bracha for it. You could have them light it, but no bracha. One may instruct a non-Jew to kindle the lights, even if one has already accepted the Shabbat. And even if the shul accepts the Shabbat. And her husband and everyone accepts the Shabbat. In fact, there's only one shul and everyone accepts the Shabbat. One may instruct the non-Jew to kindle the Shabbat lights during Benesh Mashot. During those, today, now in the winter's month, in those 10 minutes between Shkia and Tzit. Now he writes, this leniency applies only if the house will be left in darkness without Shabbat lights. However, today, when there are electric lights all over, one may not instruct a goy to kindle a Shabbat light during Benish Mashor. Okay? Since it's no longer needed, right? The whole reason why we allow the goy to light it for us during this Benish Mashor, when we could technically tell them to do stuff, we don't do it anymore because today you have electric lights at home, so you don't need those lights.
So is that because if you go a little bit further and you say you don't need it at all because you have lights?
That's true. We said that last week.
You don't even
We said that last week that perhaps we can say that. We don't say that, and we say that there's a certain ambience that comes with the special lights. It's covered, Einig, Shalom Bayis, but since technically, on a technical approach, you really don't need them. Therefore, we're not going to make the goya. We're not going to tell him to do something for us at that time.
So she can make a bracha on the light.
Which light? It's already forgot. It's already Shabbat started. So this question that she forgot.
From electric.
We don't make a bracha on something that's already done. We make a bracha before we do it. Okay, and then also Ashkenazim would say you have to shut it off and put it back on to have made a right. The Beinu Tam said that already. You can't have a candle lit the whole day and then say a bracha on it. You have to shut it down and put it back on.
When we use 18 minutes,
18 minutes, what that means, when you hear 18 minutes, the time that's printed on the calendar that says candle lighting times, it's 18 minutes more to Shkia. That's what it means, 18 minutes. Not adding. You're not allowed to do any more melacha at Shkia at 4:27. But we don't tell you light candles at 4:27. The calendar goes 18 minutes back and says light candles then. So from candle lighting time till Shkia is always 18 minutes. In America, but it's not everywhere. Right? In Israel, it's 20 minutes, 40 minutes before. What? Yes, you can do any melacha until Shkia.
Basically 4:10.
4:09.
4:09 it would be the
right. That's how you would always know. If you know what time Shkia is, you can figure out candlelighting there. That's only, by the way, in the United States, at least in New York. I don't know, but in Eretz Yisrael, the calendar is 20 minutes in candlelighting before Shkia. Places are 40 minutes before Shkia. So you have to know what you're talking about. Here, when they say 18 minutes, that's what they mean by the 18 minutes. Okay, once it's Shkia, everybody holds you cannot do any more melacha. Right? I remember it happened once. This is a sad story. There was a guy who when we were living in Borough Park, was a Bukharian guy. It was already Shabbat, and he was still doing melacha. So someone went over to ask him, "What are you doing?" He says, "What do you mean? I'm going to pray by Hasidim. They pray mincha 72 minutes after Shkia." So he thought that if you're praying mincha so late, I can still do melacha until then. Someone had to explain to him that's not the way it works. Once it's Shkia, there's no more melacha. Right? What?
Not wrong.
Right, he had a wrong thought process. He wasn't trained well. He wasn't brought up correctly, so he didn't know. Right, but the idea is once it's Shkia, that's sort. Okay, so that's the halacha regarding asking a goy to light the candles for us. So they could technically, but we don't do it today because we have electric
better
light.
not to light. That's it. Once 4:27.
That's it. Once it's 4:27, you can't do anything anymore. That's it. Nothing. And you know, some people say, but how can I have Shabbat without lighting? No, you can have Shabbat without candles. It's fine. Yeah, you have to remember what's more important. In fact, there's a shul in Queens I used to daven on, and on Chanukah, they would not light the menorah on Friday. Friday night, right before Shabbat, he did not light the menorah. The Rav made the shita; he would not light the menorah on Friday night. Ashkenazic shul. And I once asked Rabbi Boom, I said, "Why do you do this? Everyone lights it." He said, "You know why? Because I want people to see that on Shabbat, once it hits Shabbat, we don't light. People can ask why it's not lit, and I tell them because we came late and it was ready Shabbat, and we don't light. Because people might think, what do you mean? I have to light the menorah. Who cares about Shabbat? I have to light the menorah. It's more important. So I have to teach them what's more important.
No, but even though before midnight, it's okay.
The what? Of course. Well,
Because usually
in shul, he was saying people are coming in late to shul, last minute, right? And they think they're going to light menorah. He wants to show them that once Shabbat came in, you don't worry about the candles anymore. That's it. You can't light. All right.
somewhere I read that right after midnight, then you could light up. Yeah, it's better. You can't, find
Yeah, that's to do with something else. That's not to do with. Okay, I want to stick to the page 123. We're coming to a very important topic right now. This is a big differentiation between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim when it comes to lighting candles for Shabbat. Two things we have to work out today. First of all, when a person lights the candles for Shabbat, are they automatically accepting Shabbat? Does it automatically happen? La'adik neshel Shabbat. Do they automatically accept Shabbat? Do they let the match extinguish by itself and they don't blow it out? They let it fall by itself. Or do we say, my lighting is lighting, but it's not Shabbat yet? And I can still do malacha as long as it's before Shkia. So if I light at 4:09, 4:27 is no more malacha. So maybe I can still do malacha after I light. And maybe my lighting is not considered right away accepted. And that plays another major factor we're going to have to see is, when do I make the bracha? If my bracha brings in Shabbat, then how could I say the bracha and then light? It's already Shabbat. Maybe I should light and then say the bracha. Well, that's a problem. Why? Because usually we say a bracha before we do something. And then we light the candles. We say hamotzi and then we eat the bread. We don't eat the bread and then say hamotzi. Right? So there's a lot of issues to work out here. So let's start with the Baal Halachot Gedolot on source 24. And he says as follows. When one needs to light a candle, Hanukkah candle. Oh, again, Hanukkah. And the Shabbat candle, you should first light the Hanukkah candle. And then the Shabbat candle. Because if you were to light the Shabbat candle first, it will be forbidden to light the Hanukkah candle, as he would have accepted Shabbat. So Baal HaChok says, you light the Shabbat candle, you accepted Shabbat. Therefore, light the Hanukkah first. So it comes out that once you light the Shabbat candle, you accept the Shabbat. The Ramban writes, no. He says, just because I light the Shabbat candles, how is that an acceptance of Shabbat? He says, in fact, the Gemara says that in the times of the Talmud, they used to blow on the trumpet 6 times before Shabbat. Each time was to tell the people what else is happening. And at the 3rd time, that's when they would light candles. But you were still able to do other things after you light candles. So you see lighting candles, you don't get Shabbat right away, says the Ramban. So you have a machloket here, the Ramban, and the Baal HaChok. The Bahag says, you light, you get Shabbat. Ramban says, no, you light, you don't get Shabbat. He just lit. He doesn't mean anything else. Shulchan Aruch. Right? So this is the code of Jewish law. What does Shulchan Aruch say? He says, Libahag, according to the Baal HaChok, Kivon Shahedlik Nifsha Shabbat, Cholav Shabbat. Once you light Shabbat candles, you took Shabbat v'neser b'malacha. You can no longer do malacha. Baal Pizen or Heg Tzat Noshim. And therefore, there are some ladies, Sha'ach Shabaruchu b'hidliku hanerot, Mashlichot la'aretz ha'petila shebiyadan shehidlikuba, they let the wick, the match that they have just fall down and they don't extinguish it themselves because once you lit, Shabbat's already there. V'yesh oimrim she'im you made a tonight. Shabbat. So he says maybe some people can make it tonight. They can make a condition. They can say, I'm lighting the candles, but I'm not accepting Shabbat. Because really you do accept Shabbat when you light candles, but you can make it tonight, you can make a condition and say, I'm not. Then he brings V'yesh Cholkum. Cholkum al-Balachas Gedolos. This is the Rambam. V'oimrim she'ein kabbalat Shabbat talui b'Hadlakat haner. Ela b'tfilat arvit. There is no connection between lighting candles and accepting Shabbat. What you have to do, you have to pray out of it. And once you say Baruch Hu, which today he says is Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat. In times of the Talmud, they didn't say Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat like we do in the Kabbalat Shabbat. They would say Baruch Hu. That's when they accept the Shabbat. We today say Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat after the L'chadodi. That's when we accept Shabbat. That's when Shabbat is coming. If it's before the Zman of Shabbat, that's when we accepted it. So he says that's what it is. So you have this machloket. The Shulchan Aruch brings the machloket. He brings two opinions. He says some say the Malchut says that you light, you get Shabbat. The Ramban says you light, you don't get Shabbat. The Ramah, who's now paskening for Ashkenazim, he says the custom is that the woman who lights accepts Shabbat through lighting, unless she made it tonight, unless she made a stipulation that she's not accepting Shabbat. Says the Menuhat Ahava. He says we have a rule. According to Sfaradim, when we have the Shulchan Aruch saying two opinions, which opinion do we follow? He says, according to the accepted rule, then when our master writes two opinions, Shtei de'ot b'lashon yesh, and the second opinion has the word yesh, shedatol l'so kedat hashniya, that the halacha is like the second opinion. So what's the second opinion of Shulchan Aruch? That when you light, you're not accepting Shabbat. So he says, and that's the halacha for Sfaradim. The halacha for Sfaradim, when the lady is lighting the Shabbat candles, she did not accept Shabbat. What? So the Yalkut Yosef says it's good for her to make a condition once a year and say, I don't accept Shabbat when I'm lighting the candles. But from a technical approach, she doesn't have to do that because we hold that when you light, you're not accepting. We do it out the Bahag because the Bahag says you are, so we say it. Now, for Ashkenazim, what does it mean a need? The Ramah said if there's a need, she can make a Tanai. She can make a condition and say, I'm not accepting Shabbat. What's this need? When can a Ashkenazic lady say, I'm lighting, but I'm not accepting Shabbat? Is it all the time? So the Piskei Teshuvot says it has to be a need, that she needs something. It has to be something that's important. What's considered something important? So Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata says from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, traveling to the Kotel is not considered a need. Right? She's in Yerushalayim, and she wants to go to the Kotel after lighting the candles, and she wants to make it tonight. I'm not accepting Shabbat, so I can drive the car to the Kotel, whatever it is, go on the train, whatever it is. No, it's not considered enough of a need. The Tzitz Eliezer, he says, no, going to the Kotel is a need. Page 126. And therefore, she can make it tonight to go to the Kotel. So it seems to be somewhat subjective of what is considered the need.
18 minutes.
Whatever time you have until Shabbat. Now.
In the summer, we do early Shabbat, 7 o'clock.
So we're going to deal with that in a moment. Let me first deal with this. We're in Yalkut Yosef now, outside the Tzurba, page 174 in volume 1 of the English edition. And he says, as follows. Okay, let's work this out. One cannot fulfill the mitzvah of kindling Shabbat lights earlier than Plag HaMincha. The earliest time you can light Shabbat candles, and this is what we do in the summer, we light after Plag Hamin, right? Which is 1.25 seasonal hours before dusk. So, does he have Plag on the calendar here? He doesn't have Plag yet. Okay, so Plag is an hour and a half, hour and 15 before Shkia. So you can figure it out. Since if one kindles the light so early, it cannot be considered part of Shabbat. If you're lighting, if it's 4:09 is candle lighting, and you're lighting at 2 o'clock candles for Shabbat, it's not nothing to do with Shabbat. It's too early. It's way too early, right? Now, this is Yaakov that says as follows. If one finds it necessary to kindle the Shabbat lights earlier than a half hour before sunset, the sunset is 4:27. So if you have to light it before 3:57, you can do it because it's after Plag. Right? Plag today is around 3:30, right? Around 3:30. You can do it after Plag. However, the person who kindles them, listen to this, very important tonight. The person who kindles them must accept the sanctity of Shabbat at the time they are performing the act of lighting the candle. Because that way it'll be showing that they're doing it for Shabbat. You hear what he's saying here? Right, good. If you're lighting after Plag, but a half hour before Shkia, at the time you lit, you accepted Shabbat. Because in order to show that it's for Shabbat, you have to accept Shabbat. Okay? Now, and even if they want to say, so I'm lighting at 3:30, and I want to say I'm lighting early, but I'll deny that I'm not accepting Shabbat. Yaakov Yosef says it doesn't work. If you're lighting early, that means you're accepting Shabbat. So it comes out the next halakha. I'll tell you right now. This is the practical. Accordingly, a woman who wishes to kindle her Shabbat lights and then travel some destination. She wants to get into the car. She has to go to the mikvah. She has to go to someone's house, whatever. She must wait at home until it's only a half hour before Shkia. Kindle the lights and then go out. Because if you're lighting in the last half hour before Shkia, then you light and you didn't accept Shabbat right away. Right? If it's an Ashkenazic woman, she has to make it tonight. Because that was the Ramah. Tonight works if there's a need. But for a Sephardic woman, if she's lighting within the last half hour before Shkia, she doesn't have to make any tonight. Because we hold like the Ramban, that what? That you don't accept Shabbat when you light the candle. If a woman needs to travel from her home earlier than a half hour before sunset on Friday, she should arrange for her husband to kindle the lights. Because if you kindle the lights after Plag, before a half hour of Shkia, then you do accept Shabbat when you're lighting it. So there's like steps over here. Okay, then he writes over here, there are poskim who rule that nowadays, this comes back to the electric lights. We're talking about electric lights. Since we use electric lights to illuminate the house, it is possible to kindle Shabbat lights even earlier than a half hour before sunset without accepting a Shabbat. Why? What was the whole reason why if you light after Plag, but before half hour before Shkia, when you light the candles, you have to accept Shabbat in order to show that it's for Shabbat. But it says here in the Yalkut Yosef, but the fact that I'm lighting candles on Friday, why else am I lighting it if not for Shabbat? Because today I don't use candles. I use electricity. So the candles itself shows that it's for Shabbat. So I don't need to accept Shabbat when I'm lighting the candles early. He says you could use this in a case of great necessity, such as a woman having to go to the mikvah far away and needs to drive there, whatever, something. It has to be a great necessity. So to make a little bit of a summary, because I know it was a lot of points, will give us the Sephardic halacha at this point. The Sephardic halacha is that when a woman lights the candles, she's not accepting Shabbat. She's just lighting the candle. However, if she's lighting too early, if they're lighting too early, after Plag, which you're allowed to light, but before a half hour from Shkia. Then when they light, they have to accept Shabbat. Unless it's a case of great necessity. But if it's within the last half hour of Shkia and you're lighting, then that lighting doesn't mean that I'm accepting Shabbat. Okay, that is the practical halacha on that point. Now, based on all this, says the Maharil, and page 127, source 32, that's why some women have the custom to light the candles and afterwards spread their hands opposite the candles to cover them, and then they make the bracha. Because if they would say the bracha first, then they accepted Shabbat. Right? Because Ashkenazim say that the minute you say the bracha, you've accepted Shabbat. So how can I say the bracha and then make fire? So therefore, what they do is they light it, they cover their eyes, so they don't see it, make the bracha, and then they open their eyes. Ah, I see it. Peekaboo. Now I see it. Now we're good. That's what Ashkenazim do. But they're saying the minute you say bracha, I accept the Shabbat according to Ashkenazim. Wait. We're gonna get to we. We're gonna get to we. Let's understand they first. Ashkenazim say, I say the bracha, I got Shabbat already. Therefore, I light first, and then I say the bracha, which is a big problem. Because we always say, you make a bracha before you do something. The Ben Ish Chai, interestingly, the Ben Ish Chai, a Sephardic posek, he goes like the Ashkenazi, and he says, a woman should make the bracha after she lights. However, on page 128, the Yabia Omer, not very happy with the Ben Ish Chai or with the Ashkenazim, and says they're making a fundamental mistake. The mistake is, nowhere did it say that they accept Shabbat with the bracha. It said, the Baal HaChok the Lord said they accept Shabbat with the lighting. That means you make a bracha, then you light, and that's when they accept Shabbat. And the Ramban said, no, your lighting doesn't get Shabbat. But the Baal HaChok the Lord never said you should light and then say the bracha. He says that's a fundamental mistake that they're making. He says, look inside. Mikol Malkom, Sham She'en Kabal Shabbat Talui El Bahadlaka V'Loi B'Bracha. Says the Chamuvadia. Has nothing to do with the bracha. It's to do with the lighting. When Ashkenazim say they accept Shabbat, that's when they light. Not when they say the bracha. Therefore, he says it's all wrong. Therefore, he says we have to follow the halacha like Maran, that he says you don't accept Shabbat when you light, and definitely when you make the bracha. Therefore, you have to make the bracha first, and then you light the candles. Like everything else we do. We say the bracha, and then we do it. And he's very, very strong when it comes to this. In fact, you take a look at her in the Yalkut Yosef over here on page 171, outside of the Tzurba, and he says as follows. Halacha 33. Although Sephardic communities in certain countries, and this is Tzion, you were asking this before, so I want you to hear it clear. Although Sephardic communities in certain countries instructed the women to conduct themselves like the Ashkenazic practice, it was incorrect for them to rule against the teaching of the Shulchan Aruch. And any Sephardic woman who were taught to practice like Ashkenazim must discontinue it and begin to follow the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. So he's very, very strong with this. And it's very clear that we should not be following, even though the Ben Ish Chai says like this, the Ashkenazim do this. Kamavadia says we will follow the Sephardic Psak, follow the Shulchan Aruch. We do not. And even if that's what your grandmother used to do, we don't tell them to do this anymore. We instruct them differently. Here he writes, if a Sephardic woman was brought up and taught by her parents and grandparents to recite the blessing after kindling the Shabbat lights, and she's been doing this for years, she nevertheless must change her practice. Must change her practice. Once she learns the ruling of Shulchan Aruch, and she will bear no sin for disregarding her family's tradition. Okay? So much so, what happened if a Sephardic woman lit the candles and forgot to say the bracha beforehand? Can she make the bracha afterwards like the Ashkenazim? He says no. She cannot. She cannot. She may not recite it afterwards.
But she's not doing any action.
This is not considered reciting the blessing for performing the mitzvah. Exactly. That's why he says she can't do it. Once you lit it, that's it. What happens if she lit the candles?
But she's not sure.
Well, let's say she lit the candles. It still doesn't say it. Let's say she has 20 candles to light. She lights a lot of candles. Zchut Bar Yochai, Zchut David HaMelech. It's all the Tanaim, Amorim, everybody on the team. If she has 30 children, she has 50 candles lit. Okay? So she lit the Shabbat candle, Shalom V'Zachar, and then she continues lighting the other candles. So, I didn't make the bracha yet. So at this point, he says, she's not kindling the number of lights she intended to kindle in honor of Shabbat. She may recite the blessings before kindling the remaining lights. We repeat, however, that if she has kindled all the Shabbat lights that she intended to kindle, she may no longer recite the blessing. One may never recite the blessing over a mitzvah after having fulfilled it. So this is very important to teach our women because, in Samarkand, we were flooded with Chabad, which was great because they helped keep the Judaism alive. I'm not saying anything against it, but at the same time, they also, taught us their ways, and it was not correct for them to do that. And this is still something that's a difficulty with kiruv organizations till today. Some kiruv organizations feel that they're the ones doing the kiruv, so they're going to teach their practice, and it's not correct. If they're teaching Sfaradim, they should teach them their practice. And there are actually some schools in Queens today that I know that they've actually started doing that. When they start teaching halacha in class, they say both halachot. They say Ashkenazim do like this, and Sfaradim do like that. It's more difficult on the teacher for sure. So they have to do more research, they have to learn more, they have to know both practices, but that is the proper way to do it. Because if you're teaching Sephardic children, you should be teaching them the Sephardic halacha, right? If there's if it's one Sephardic boy in the school, that's one thing. But if there's a number of Sephardic boys in the school, Sephardic girls in the school, and then they should take it upon themselves to do that and to teach them appropriately. Okay, let's take a look at the Machshava. I didn't take a look at this yet, so we'll take a look together. He writes over here on page 130. He writes as follows. A good woman, Rabbeinu B'chai, okay, he writes as follows. A good woman is a cause of Torah study, and she's able to lead her son to the study hall. And she's usually at home and is compassionate to him in many ways, which helps her to lead him to learning Torah from his youth, such that even when he gets older, he will not leave it. Therefore, it is proper for a woman to daven to Hashem. Hashem, he should be blessed, at the time of lighting the Shabbat candle, as this is a mitzvah incumbent on her. It's her mitzvah that Hashem gave her, that Hashem should give her children who enlighten in Torah. As a tefillah is heard more at the time of doing a mitzvah, in the merit of the Shabbat candle, which is a light, she should be worthy of sons who are masters of Torah, which is called a light. As a mitzvah is a candle and Torah is a light. One who is reliable regarding the candles will have children who are Talmidei Chachamim. And I tell you, we think that here we are sitting today in New York, and we're learning Torah and Halakha, and we think it's us. We should know, by the way, that our grandparents, great-grandparents, when the communists came into those countries and started forbidding them to do things, and they lit the candles on Shabbat, that's what they were davening for. They were davening that their children come back, that they don't get lost from the Torah. We who are sitting here today, it's not because we did it. Our parents, our grandparents, they all davened for that. I remember my grandmother, she lived and be well, she should light the candles, and she would sit there, cry and daven. She had tears coming down her eyes as she was praying in front of the candles. Right? That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a process. I mean, that's why you need 18 minutes they give you, because you have to cry a lot, you have to daven a lot at the time. Right? You can't just go light and then go back to doing malacha. You need some time to do stuff. Right? People are too busy today taking pictures of their Shabbos table and putting it on Instagram last minutes before Shabbat. Right? That's very good. They're proud of it. Prepare it on Tuesday and make a picture. Everyone to see. Friday, it's such a special Zman. Such a special Zman to daven. Right? At this Shabbat's coming in. Right? It's Me'ein Olam Haba. It's like a very special Zman. It's the woman's time for doing the mitzvah. to relight the candle, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, that she extinguished. She's bringing it back. It's time of tefillah. Says Rav Shlomo Levenstein in his Umatok HaOr, he writes as follows: my grandmother was very distant from observance of Torah and mitzvot. Nevertheless, she was very careful about one thing. Every Friday night, she would light Shabbat candles. Since mothers pray for their children at this time, she too would pray the following tefillah: may it be your will that my grandchildren follow the path of Ben Gurion. Right? Who is Ben Gurion? No? Ben Gurion. Who is Ben Gurion? No, Ben Gurion, the president of Israel. Right?
Prime Minister.
He was a very famous guy. This continued until one day, Zalman Aron returned home very excited. He told his household the news that Prime Minister David Ben Gurion met with the Chazon Ish. Ben Gurion was exceptional in his lavish praise for the Chazon Ish. He repeated many times that if I had not seen him, I would not have believed that such people exist. That night, the next Friday night, Mrs. Aaron lit Shabbat candles and then said in her prayer, Master of the world, if Ben Gurion admired Rav Karelitz, the Chazon Ish, so much, please give me the merit of having grandchildren who follow the path of Rav Karelitz. This prayer, which she composed herself, my grandmother continued to pray every Friday night, even though she did not observe Shabbat. And now you can see the fruits of her prayer. Many of her descendants, including me, have merit to return to the tradition of our forefathers to study Torah and observe the mitzvot. So maybe this goes back to, Reuben, your question. The traditional woman lighting the candles, apparently even there is a huge schud. She davens out there and she understands what she's doing. She might not accept it, but it seems to be something important there. In fact, the Gemara in Brachot says, no tefillah recited will ever return empty-handed. It will always have some effect or impact, even if not until many years later. May the tefillot that we recite on behalf of our family and children, lighting the candles, have the same impact that the tefillah of Ms. Aaron did for her grandchildren. So, Rabotai, it's a very important zman, a very important thing. And people should take it seriously and put their mind to it, take the time to daven at that time. Next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, we will continue with the mitzvot of Tosefet Shabbat, of adding on to Shabbat. Zachar v'cha, toda rabba l'kulam, Hanukkah Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach.
When a woman lights the candle, she has to eat over there.
What do you mean?
Like, for example,